Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Inflammation. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. And what a better way to start your day with a little talk of inflammation. Who doesn't get inflammation either here, there, or everywhere? Blake Snell. Hi, my name's David. We're good now here in Miami, talking about inflammation of the throat nodules with a little extra phlegm. Ugh. Blake Snell, Dodgers, $182 million contract. All offseason, we talked about the signings the Dodgers were making, the depth that they were acquiring, the fact that they wanted not just a starting 5, they wanted a starting 10. And the reason they wanted a starting 10 is that they knew that there were going to be injuries. Why? Because they had pitchers who had never been able to be healthy. And while you can dream the dream that health will come or health will stay, at the end of the day, you realize you were simply deluding yourself. Blake Snell woke up and said, I feel some inflammation in my shoulder. The Dodgers did their best Whitesnake imitation and said, here we go again on our own. Blake Snell ends up seeing the doctor in D.C., where the team is playing the Nationals. Coincidentally, the Dodgers were visiting the White House to celebrate their World Series championship from last season. Coincidentally, Blake Snell had some hours off because he wasn't going to the White House because he wasn't on the team. So Blake Snell instead visits the team doctor who is with the team, ostensibly to go to the White House. Somehow there's some visiting privileges, maybe, and I've done this with players before, you go to the room of the doctor or a conference room to do some sort of examination. Look at that photo if you're watching Nothing Personal on the Nothing Personal with David Sampson YouTube channel. God, did I love going to the White House. Our president was George W. Bush in 2003 when we went to the White House. We went off season. I think it was November, could have been December or January. And I've got that same photo and the president's there. It doesn't matter your politics. And there's a lot of confusion about should you go to the White House, should you not? Are there players who didn't want to go to the White House? Would you? I got a different view. I don't necessarily agree with everything that any president says or does. But there's one thing I saw as a child watching champagne celebrations, growing into a young adult and thinking, God, what if I were ever able to do that? You always saw the White House visit, and it never mattered. Republican, Democrat, peace, war, understanding, love. You got to go once you win a World Series. You know that your manager and coaches are going to be at the next year's All-Star game, and you know that you're going to get a ring. You know you're going to get a championship pennant forever in your ballpark, and you know you're going to go to the White House. We went to the White House and got a plane, the whole team, and people brought their kids, and we got photos with, at then, Governor Jeb Bush, President George W. Bush. And I remember he was giving a speech, and we had given talking points to the White House chief press secretary, whoever it was, whoever wrote the speech for him. And President Bush is a baseball guy, which was cool. Remember, he owned the Texas Rangers. You remember that President Bush at one point was maybe going to be the commissioner of baseball. He didn't really have the votes. But in any case, we give talking points about the season, about the comebacks, the fact that we won as a Marlins team 3 games in a row against the Giants, also against the Cubs, and also against the Yankees. And Bush was making jokes. And I remember standing there, and Coca, you'll appreciate this, because very often you're not present. And when you're going through something surreal, you end up forgetting the moment, or it goes by in a blur. And then you're using pictures as your frame of reference going forward. I remember standing behind George W. as he was giving the talk. And I remember taking what Kirsten Dunst did in Elizabethtown, where I took pictures, mental pictures of each of the things that was happening. And I just remember thinking, there's a really high likelihood that I'll never be here again in this situation. But there's also a likelihood that I'm going to spend the next 14 years chasing it. And it all happened to be true. The rule when you go visit the White House, of course, is that you're not allowed to go if you weren't on the team. Blake Snell, as you know, was not on the Dodgers last year. He signed this free agent deal. The Dodgers couldn't have thought he was going to stay healthy. And now he's got this inflammation, and the Dodgers were jumping all over themselves to let you know, don't worry, everything's fine. Dave Roberts, the manager, said, hey, maybe a couple starts. Beyond that, we're good. He had a little soreness. He felt it. When you have that soreness, you're going to miss a start. We'll backdate it. Here's the thing about Blake Snell, and here's the thing about shoulders. In my experience, shoulder soreness and shoulder inflammation scares me more than forearm flexor tendonitis and soreness, more than biceps, triceps, more than elbow. Shoulder, it's worse than all of them. Torn labrum, frayed labrum. When you do your MRIs and when you are doing a physical on a pitcher who you're going to sign, you are way more focused on the shoulder than you are on the elbow, because elbows are such that they can be totally intact and then one pitch later, boom, or you can show terrible fraying in the tendon, and you can actually pitch on that for years. But a decreasing ability to have shoulder movement without shoulder soreness and inflammation in there that requires shots, cortisone, etc., that is a red flag. So while Blake Snell may only miss a start or two, he joins a group of Dodgers who are on the injured list, including Clayton Kershaw. Shohei Ohtani is still not pitching. You know that Evan Phillips, Tony Gonsolin, Gratterall, he's on the IL. These are just pitchers. They've got like $70 million, I bet, worth of players not pitching. The reason why that is so important as we head into bargaining, as we talk about all of the craziness between teams and economic disparity, is that if a team like the team I ran for all those years, if we had that amount of money on the IL, we were done. We didn't have a depth of 10 starters. We had the names of 14 starters going into the year, but about 8 of them, dare I say, 11 of them shouldn't be big league starters for anybody, certainly not for a winning championship competing team. The Dodgers, on the other hand, have all of these starters that any team would take in their top 5. So Snell goes out, you put May in, but guess what happens? You start your process, you win the first couple games. Everyone says you're going to win 162 games. Then you realize you're not going to win that. And then you say to yourself, well, how about 116 games? Maybe we tie the Mariners and we're the best team of all time. And then 2 weeks into the season, you look up and you say, wait a minute, I'm in 3rd place in my own division. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 9-3, 3rd place behind the Padres and the Giants. Do you remember the 1 year, Coca, that the Dodgers did not win their division in the Dave Roberts era, like in the last decade? That's the year they won over 100 games, but that's the year the Giants did also. And they lost the division to the San Francisco Giants. Anyone remember that? So all of the coronation that we've all done on the Dodgers, it's a little premature. But what does that mean from baseball's business standpoint? If the Dodgers don't repeat as champions, if the Dodgers make the playoffs but are eliminated in the first round, or if, heaven forbid, the Dodgers don't even make it to October, do you realize that the whole argument that all these owners have, whether you're Dick Monfort, Bob Castellini of the Reds, Bruce Sherman of the Marlins, no matter who you are, saying We can't compete with the Dodgers. We need a whole new economic system. We need a salary cap. We need a salary floor because the economic disparity is out of control. The payroll disparity is ridiculous. The commissioner gets to call him up and say, dudes, the Dodgers didn't even make the playoffs. Just doing what they did doesn't guarantee anything other than soreness, other than operating losses. You don't need to do it that way. We're good. So what does baseball do? They want the Dodgers and the Yankees in the World Series for sure. What they don't want is the Dodgers to have the best season and then get to the LCS and then lose, because once you're in the LCS, the owners are still going to have the view that it's all about payroll. So either you have the Dodgers lose early or go all the way, May. And right now, third place, a little early. Strike that, Coca. It's a lot early in the baseball season. We are about 12 games in. We're not even 10% done with the season. What am I even talking about? The Dodgers are going to break the record. Who's kidding who? 12. That's the nothing personal word of the moment. 12 is the number of segments that we've talked about LA and not mentioned the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Can you imagine the Anaheim Angels, the Los Angeles Angels, whatever? They are just, they're fourth cousins twice removed in that market. It's all Dodgers all the time. Artie Moreno can't stand it. He's the owner of the Angels. If you knew Artie like I knew Artie, you'd realize that his ego is the size of about 29 other people I know. And that ego does not like it very well when he or them, his team, are total afterthoughts when you had two of the top 5 players in baseball on your team for so many years and you couldn't do squat. There was a lot of shenanigans with the Angels, as you know. Some nefarious stuff related to their stadium and their desire to get a new stadium. You may recall there was a break in the action with a deal where the Angels and Artie were going to buy some land, trying to develop, get a new stadium, renovate the old one. Didn't quite work out. People lost their jobs. People didn't lose their freedom, but it was gosh darn close. Well, Artie, you're back in the news today. So now we get to start the count over, although we did talk about the Dodgers. Here's what's happening in Angel Land. They still need to renovate their stadium. They still need to figure out how to compete in the Los Angeles market with the Dodgers, and they are so far behind that they have no choice but to try development. So, the mayor of Anaheim decided, here's my idea. Mayor Aitken said, I'm going to send a letter. And I'm going to send a letter to Artie Moreno saying, hi, I'm the mayor. I'd love to work with you to get a new ballpark. I would love to partner with you to make our Angels great again. Because if we can MOAA, make our Angels great again, MOGA, if we can MOAGA, we can do it together. So the mayor sent this letter. This is an all-timer. And in the letter was a list of demands that they wanted in order to go forward with Artie Moreno. And the one that caught me by surprise is that they want to return to the Anaheim Angels. Artie Moreno fought so hard when he got into baseball to get rid of the word Anaheim. He hates Anaheim. He hates the word Anaheim. My guess is he's not a big fan of the city either, but I digress and I don't care. The humor and irony of the mayor saying, we'll talk about a lot of stuff. We're happy to enter into a conversation with you. However, one of the things we're going to ask for is that you're the Anaheim Angels again. When Artie signed a lease, he had to be known as the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And that had to be officially read in owners' meetings during attendance and during votes. It had to be referenced in certain places in the ballpark. But Artie made it very clear to other teams' broadcasters. He made it very clear, we're the Los Angeles Angels. Don't say of Anaheim. That would happen from time to time. We did it too. We would meet with the other teams' broadcasters, meet with our own broadcasters, spread the word. Hey, we got some stuff for you to talk about and not talk about. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. There's things that we would give to the other team's broadcasters when they cooperated and things that we take away when they didn't. It is not a coincidence, folks, that sometimes the ice cream machine at the Marlins press box wasn't working. Not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that sometimes it's colder or hotter inside a visiting team's broadcast booth. Not a coincidence. Remember, when you grow up with a team owner who grew up with Red Auerbach and all the shenanigans they did at the Boston Garden, when you have been a Knick fan your whole life, you realize that home field advantage can mean more than cutting the grass the way you want to cut the grass. Red Auerbach invented that. So it is possible that there are things that are done when Artie Moreno comes to town. However, the chance of him changing the name to the Anaheim Angels is so small that the fact that the mayor put it on a list of things that she demands shows you where that relationship actually is. Because if you know about a non-starter with your partner, let's just make it easy. Let's say your partner doesn't like Italian food. Who doesn't like Italian food? But let's just pretend. Hey, do you want to go out tonight? Yeah, you choose the restaurant. All right, I want to go to Olive Garden. Why would you do that? You know that it's going to start an argument. You know that he, she, or they are going to say, no, I prefer not. And yet you still do it. Why? Because you want to say you can. You want to say that you've got the power dynamic. Yeah, you want me to choose the restaurant. You want me to pay. You want to go to dinner. We're going for the breadsticks, baby. The mayor sends a letter and goes right to something that she knows is the non-starter. How do you think that's going to end? I'm just throwing it out there. Well, not well? A response letter, dare I say? I'm switching gears now to a story with the Red Sox. And this is going to be a story about their player, Jarren Duran. There is a documentary out about the Red Sox. And in episode 4, which is now available for viewing, Duran, who is a top of the lineup professional baseball player for the Boston Red Sox, talked about the mental difficulties that he had and the mental illness that he had that almost led to him losing his life. We're going to put a phone number up here if you're watching Nothing Personal with David Sampson on YouTube. And if you are having, it's the suicide prevention line, because we're going to talk about this. Just call or text 988, and someone is there 24 hours a day. I can only promise you that you're not alone. I can promise you that whatever thoughts you're having, however bad things are going, however you feel there is no light at the end of the tunnel, and if there is a light, it's an oncoming train. Whatever ideations you may have of the pain that can disappear, not recognizing or realizing the pain that it can cause, there are people who can professionally talk to you. One of the things that I take incredibly seriously is the ability to talk to as many listeners as possible. And Coca, it's happened several times where we've had people contact me, our show, who have had these thoughts, suicide thoughts. And I always say the same thing. Please call the hotline. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually the opposite. It's actually showing power. It's showing strength. It's showing resilience. It's showing the very resolve that you think you don't have. All you have to do is dial 988. That's it. You can even text it. It's a serious topic, and I have a mea culpa on the topic that I never thought about it much when I was leading a baseball team. I never thought about players slumping. I never thought about players not performing. I never thought about sending players to the minor leagues. All things that caused Duran to spiral to spiral to the point where he pulled the trigger on a gun that didn't go off, even though it was loaded. Otherwise, he would have been dead. There was some force of God, some force of luck that saved his life. This isn't about me. It's about him. It's about you. It's about us. It's about a world where we're meant to be something that we're not. It's where we dream of being something that we can't be because we're told it's possible. It's where we are, all of us, with a platform in public in some way or another, who aren't wired or meant to have that sort of pressure. It's about kids and teens and adults and older people who realize they'll never be what they thought they were supposed to be, and that their life can't be what they expected, and therefore they're a disappointment to themselves or their family. It's about people trying to make a baseball team to make a living, who realize they're in a slump and they may get taken off a roster. And what does that mean? I've never thought about it. I've never thought about the impact that it has if a player's wife is pregnant or a player is having issues at home or with money. And for me, you don't perform, you're off the roster. It's just sort of a emotionless, robotic result. It's a results world. I'm not saying that I would have changed any decisions that were made regarding putting the best team on the field that you can. What I am saying is that if I had to be a president again, which I don't want to be, because I want to do this with you every single day, but if I had to do it again, I would have been more caring when crushing the dreams of players, when ending the dreams of players. I would have found a way to let the player know that it's not the end of his career. And if it is, that's not the end of the world, that we're actually sending you out. We are making you better. We're trying to make you better. Duran was very honest that his on-field woes in 21 and 22 fueled the mental health struggles that he had. And wouldn't you know it, that just 2 years later, he was an all-star? 2 years later, he finished in the top 10 in the MVP race. Just when you thought that you were out of exit ramps, just when you thought that there was no chance that something can get better, it's your brain tricking you. It's a defense mechanism meant to stop you from taking the chance, from seeing what the tide will bring once the sun comes up tomorrow, which it always will. No matter what the tariffs are, no matter what the political agenda is, no matter what the hate is, the racism, no matter what you want to change, no matter of the elimination of the ozone layer, no matter, the sun's going to come up. And just think about looking back, and Duran was pretty amazing about what he said. He said, I would think every day that I can't effing do this. I couldn't deal with telling myself how much I sucked every effing day. Like I was already hearing it from fans. And when they said to me, it was like I've told myself 10 times worse in the mirror. That was a really tough time for me. I didn't even want to be here anymore. I got to a point where I was sitting in my room. I had my rifle and I had a bullet, and I pulled the trigger and the gun clicked. This is on the show, ladies and gentlemen. But nothing happened. So to this day, I thank God just didn't let me take my own life, because I seriously don't know why it didn't go off. I took it as a sign of I might have to be here for a reason. So that's when I started to look myself in the mirror after the gun didn't go off. I was like, do I want to be here or do I not want to be here? That happened for a reason. And obviously you're here for a reason. So let's be the way you want to be, and play the way you want to play, and live the way you want to live. Not sure I've seen a more powerful quote from a player. I would encourage you, the series which is released on Netflix, to watch it. But I would encourage you actually to think about your own life, your own struggles, because we all have it. Just because you see someone who looks good in makeup and happens to be pretty and dating the best looking guy or the best looking woman or the prom queen or the prom king, you don't really know what's going on in their life. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for anybody. I'm not asking you to play a violin for anybody. I'm not asking you to change your perception of anybody, whether it's warranted or not. I'm asking you to change your perception of you. I'm asking you to think about your own situation, what you can do for your own life, because if you're waiting for the loaded rifle to not go off, then you're playing a game and taking a chance that the odds are you're going to lose. So not only do I encourage you to call, please, or text 988, more importantly, I encourage all of us who aren't calling or texting that number to have the empathy, to have the forethought, the foresight, to actually understand and appreciate a sickness that we can't understand or appreciate. How do you do it? You do it with a level of empathy that I never used to have, a level of empathy that I'm seeking to have in order to try to be better, in an effort, in the never-ending effort to consider a way to simply be different and better and achieve. I couldn't be more excited for Duran's career. But what I mean by that is his life. He had a great year. He's a great player. Do you know what the odds are of him being a Hall of Fame Major League Baseball player? Almost zero. You know what the odds are of him even getting to free agency? Very, very slim. Even arbitration. It's a really tough sport. To the extent that he got the help that he needed and realized that one path was a dead end and one path brought some sort of feeling, some sort of salvation. That's the path. Coca, let's take a break. We come back, we're going to review the new Steven Soderbergh movie, and then we're going to talk about something that happened with the Detroit Tigers that infuriates me and changed someone's life, many people's life. We'll talk about all of that after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David. I'm here every day. We happen to be right now in Miami. Le Batard will be live in 33 minutes. If you're on Nothing Personal with David Sampson YouTube, switch over to Le Batard Show live at 9. He's here, although I haven't seen him in the studio, but I do believe he's here. Even when I'm in Miami, I watch a movie. Even when I have to stay up and watch a college basketball game that ends at about 11:09, watching enough bricks being laid to build the skyscraper that's covering my view from the hotel where I currently stand. That said, still time for a movie. Black Bag. Steven Soderbergh is the kind of director, just so we all know this, when he directs a movie, I'm watching it. He's earned that for the rest of time. It's like I'll watch every Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie, no matter what. Yes, I watched the trailer. It's the final reckoning. Thank God the guy's not insurable. We got him. Every single Steven Soderbergh movie I'm going to watch. George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Quentin Tarantino. I could give you a top 5 list of no matter what I'm in. The problem is every once in a while you watch a movie because you're supposed to watch the movie and it doesn't live up to the expectations because you're thinking, could this be Jennifer Lopez? Could this be George Clooney? Could this be as good as Out of Sight? You love Michael Fassbender. You love Cate Blanchett. Almost guaranteed to watch movies therein. What could go wrong? Pierce Brosnan, James Bond is in the movie, for crying out loud. And then you realize how hard it is to make as good a movie as you've pictured that he's made or that he could make. And then you realize that while it's ranked 7.0, it was less than that. It's about a 6.1. Not terrible. It's not Snow White's 1.6. It's not some movies Kevin Hart's made or Adam Sandler recently at 4.9. I'm looking for 6.9 or better in general in life, and this was a 7.0. It wasn't good enough. So here's the question. Are you willing to watch it because of your commitment to Steven and your thankfulness for what he's done? If you don't feel that way, skip it. If you do feel that way, you have to watch it because you owe it to him. Let's talk about the Detroit Tigers. Let's talk about an assistant general manager named Sam Menzen. The reason why he's in the news is that he resigned from his position yesterday. And we're talking about, is the picture you have about this, by the way, Coca? Oh, was it about the movie? Oh, you just a general picture you want to put up? Oh, do you have it? That's a good one. You should do it. There I am. That's me at the White House with George W. Bush. What a crack staff. He didn't know I was going to even talk about this, but he did find it. If you're listening to this, you have no idea, but you're looking at Larry Beinfest and Jack McKeon and Jeffrey Luria. You're looking at Michael Tejera and Pudge Rodriguez. You're looking at Tony Perez. You're looking at A.J. Burnett, who didn't pitch during the World Series, and you're looking at Mike Lowell. Little Niner action. God, those were good times. We planned where we stood. The owner wanted to be between Jack and GW, and then we wanted to put Pudge next to the president, and then I slid in wearing my suit and tie. Thank you, Coca. That made me smile. I have no idea where we were. Tigers. You totally distracted me with that memory of the way it used to be. Every time I see that picture, I start singing Glory Days. Nah, these are better days. I have another word of advice for you. Now, we've been serious on this show, talking about very serious topics. This is also going to be serious, but I'm going to do it in a slightly more jocular way. But make no mistake, this is outrageous. Stop sending pictures of your genitals. Who does that? So many of you. Stop doing it. Sam Menzen had a chance to be a president of baseball operations, a rising star, a true baseball executive. And now he's done. And I don't mean done for a day, a week, a month, or a year. I'm talking about done. He is never going to run a baseball organization. And this is not an old man. This is someone who is ascending. And yet he couldn't resist sending DPs to people. Seriously? The good news is the Tigers didn't have to fire him because he resigned exactly 1 millisecond before being canned. All of this just got discovered. The team said that we were made aware of the allegations to Sam Menzen's conduct. We promptly completed an investigation. Before the club could terminate Mr. Menzen, he resigned. This type of behavior is contrary to our standards, has absolutely no place within our organization. We have a positive and safe culture for our colleagues and will continue to emphasize respect, inclusion, and professionalism. Here's the problem. We have to say that. That's got to be the PR quote. It is MLB approved, team approved, crisis PR approved. Isn't it weird when there's a killing in your building, like Steve Martin, only murders in the building? Can you imagine if you're selling an apartment in the building and you say, hey, we've got the safest building in town. There's been like 3 seasons worth of murders in the building. How is it that we're safe? Hey, we've got the best culture. We emphasize respect and inclusion. There is no place within our organization for this, except for the place in our organization where it exists and lives. Now, of course, I could give you the excuse. Every company has a bad actor. Every organization has somebody with zero judgment. May I remind everyone listening to this show or watching, no matter what position you're in an organization, and there's some high levels people who watch our show, thank you. You've got alternatives. We had a whole group of people within our baseball team, professional sports team, who would help explain alternatives to players and to executives. One thing that we would strongly suggest is that sending something unsolicited to anybody inside the organization, bad idea. Do you remember when the Mets had to fire their GM 3 years ago, Jared Porter? Remember, they named him and he could barely be GM. What was he, Coca GM for a week when it was discovered that he did the same thing? Jared Porter lost his job. He's done. Yet Sam Menzen, there's always the ego. Hey, it's not me. This will never happen to me. That's what everybody says until it happens to them, and then they start raising money for the very cause that they could have avoided if they'd changed their behavior. There's an entire group of people in rehab right now simply because they got caught doing what they shouldn't have done, not because they wanted to change what they were doing. Sam Menzin himself responded to inquiries about what's happening with him, and he said, I'm seeking a career change. I'm moving back to New York to handle, quote, some family issues. Yeah, you have some family issues because you were sending DPs to people not in your family. Far be it from me to overly criticize any sort of action that is outside of the norm or of the convention of a vow. However, unsolicited DPs, it can't be, but it is, because in baseball, we promote power. We promote ego. We promote the untouchable invincibility that comes with the love and adoration and adulation that you all give us. We suffer from an acute sense of self-importance because we know we can create headlines anytime. We know that we hold your emotions in the palm of our hand with a trade or a signing. We believe that our MO, our modus operandi, we believe that everything we do makes us on this pedestal that you can't get to, except we want you to relate to us. We want to be relatable because we want you to buy tickets. We want you to follow us and come to games and be engaged in what we're doing. But we always need to remember, and you've got to make sure you're understanding that you're not us. You can't be us. Think about how preposterous that is. I think about the number of decades that I spent thinking the same thing. It leads to a level of ego, an inflated sense of self that causes you to do things that otherwise you wouldn't do? Or does it tell you and enable you to do things that you think everybody else is doing, but they don't get in trouble for it? That's where this topic gets interesting to me. There are people sending DPs everywhere, every day. Are they getting in trouble? Maybe. Does that trouble get written about in the paper? Does that trouble become public information? Not as likely. So isn't it true that when you've got a platform, which I've argued on this show we all have, whether it's one person, your family dining room table, or you do a show in front of tens of thousands of people every single day? Don't you remember I said that we're all responsible for whatever size our platform is to make the difference we can make with the people with whom we can make it? And that even in your micro society, you have the responsibility to act and behave in the way in which you should in a macro society when you are more public? Yet for whatever reason, examples happen time and time again where people confuse fame with acceptance. People confuse ego with opportunity. The way this ends for Sam, and believe me, it's going to end, is that MLB is going to have to suspend him. Even though he's saying he's out of the league now, he resigned, even though that he said he's fixing some family issues and changing careers and moving, MLB is way too smart. They've dealt with this for way too long. I'm calling on MLB to act swiftly. First, they have to announce the investigation. The investigation is going to be quick. You got to make it quick. You can't make it an 8-monther. Let's unfortunately say to Sam and say to everybody out there, it's enough now. It's a straight ganug. I am so sure that's what's going to happen with this situation that I'm going to make it an official wait to see. So I'm allowed to revisit this. We're allowed to talk about it further. MLB will suspend Sam Menzin. Wait to see. Nothing personal pick of the day. Raise your hand if you're sure that you were nervous when you had Florida -1 and they were down 12. Raise your hand if you were nervous when the stat went up that only 3 teams have come back from 12 or more points. You were like, ooh, this doesn't seem all that possible. Raise your hand when you were up 1 saying, can you make a free throw? for crying out loud. And they did. Florida won the national title. Houston and their current incarnation of not Phi Slamma Jamma, where Guy Lewis is not the coach, but Kelvin Sampson is with a P. Coca, did you see the provision in Kelvin Sampson's contract? This was a doozy. His contract to coach Houston includes a provision where he gets to choose. He alone gets to choose the next head coach. Guess what? He chose his son. Hell yeah. Kelvin Sampson will be the next head coach of Houston. Can you imagine hiring a manager and saying, you're it. We love you. As a matter of fact, we love you so much that you can choose the next manager. It's absurd. What a great power play. I choose Kellen. I don't know who they're going to choose. So Houston loses the game 65-63. Florida is the champion on the same weekend where their coach who won 2 titles with them, Billy Donovan, is now going to the Hall of Fame. What a great day to be a Gator. Here I am in Miami saying to myself, God, anyone but the Gators, anyone. But of course, I've got friends and loved ones who love the Gators, who are UF alum. So I guess I'm happy. And then I did a show this morning, Coca, the Miller and Moulton Show. Check it out every morning before we start here. And they said that people in Florida would trade a national championship in basketball just to get into the college football playoff. Am I crazy, or do I not understand the significance of football in that conference, in that city, with that jersey? A basketball men's championship trophy, handing that back just to have an opportunity to lose in the first round of the CFP? How is that a trade that you're going to make? It doesn't even make sense to me. It's not even close to an equal. Haven't you ever heard of a bird in the hand? Well, we had Florida -1 and we won. We're now 34-40. Do we have any graphic for what's next, Coca? Do we have any sort of sound or music we can play? Because today's a very big day, a day that I expected would never come again, but just goes to show you. That's the music associated with, wait for it, it's Corbin Day. Can you believe Patrick Corbin is starting a Major League Baseball game for a team that is in first place and for a team that has a thought of going to the postseason, a team who won a World Series only 2 seasons ago? The Texas Rangers signed Patrick Corbin, and he's making his season debut against Tyone and the Cubs, who are also in first place. And I made a commitment to you all, was it a year ago, 2 years ago? Can't remember how long. We do something called Corbin Day here at Nothing Personal. That means as part of our pick of the day, we pick against Patrick Corbin. And you can bet your sweet bippy that we will keep separate track of Corbin Day, but we're going to come out a winner. We've got the Cubs -162 over the Rangers. Patrick Corbin, he's back, baby. No longer making the money he was making as a member of the Nationals with that ridiculous post-World Series contract. That was one of the worst contracts ever. He's now on those veteran contracts that you get after the worst contract ever, where you're incentivized to pitch and in the big leagues, and then you can make like a couple mil. Side note, we've got a loyal listener whose birthday is today. I wanted to reach out and say happy birthday to Scott Lieberman. I know he listens to every show, and I appreciate you. FOS, happy birthday. Another birthday shout out to someone who I don't think listens to the show because I don't think she knows there's a show. It's someone I went to law school with all those years ago from 1990 to 1993. It's Anat Keller's birthday. The reason I wanted to reach out to Anat right now during the show, can you believe what I'm doing now? Happy birthday, Anat. I love when owners are honest. It's all we want on this show. It's what we try to break through. We tell you when they're lying. We tell you when a statement is wrong. Ted Leonsis is the owner of I was about to say the Washington Wizards, and it is the Wizards, but I wanted to say the Washington Bullets, but that really is a long time ago. Remember, he's the founder and CEO of Monumental. Remember, they started a TV channel. Remember that he was going to move the Wizards outside of DC. Then they did a new deal. They announced a deal. It fell apart. Remember that whole situation with the Washington Nationals who were for sale, and the leading bidder was going to be Ted Leonsis, but then they didn't do a deal. So then the learners who own the Nationals said, hey, the team's not really for sale anymore, but it really was for sale. They just couldn't get the price they wanted because they were fighting with Mid-Atlantic Sports Network, a network that was founded in order to appease the Baltimore Orioles when the Nationals moved to Washington from Montreal. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Well, the deal with Masson has been settled. The value of the Nationals TV deal is now settled. There's no more litigation. There's no more fighting. The Nationals have broken free. After this year, they have the right to sign whatever local TV deal they want, because the free money that was coming from Masson, those days are over, folks. Masson's worth pennies on the dollar, which is why it'll be one of those networks that are rolled up into a national package with Major League Baseball. Do you see how it all comes together? Well, wouldn't you know it that our friend Ted Leonsis came out and said, I've got an idea. How about if next year the Washington Nationals come onto our network, Monumental? Wouldn't that be amazing? That's been Ted's play from the start. He wanted to get the Nationals on his network in order to create and have more hours of content, in order to try to maintain any sort of cable distribution money, any sort of cable sub money, or have more in the tank when you go out and try to get people to buy your app and stream your app. You need content. But what Ted came out and said just in the last few days, and he did it in the Washington Business Journal, he said, the only way it would ever make sense for my network to buy the local TV rights of the Nationals would be if I'm the owner. Yes, 100% honesty. Why does it make sense to own the team and the network and not just the network? Because when you own the team and the network, you get to do a deal. You get to argue with baseball about what the value of that deal is. You get to prop up the network in a way that doesn't necessarily prop up the team, which is a way to avoid revenue sharing. And while baseball will tell you that they'll peg a number of what TV value is worth, you can bet your bippy that the value to the owner of the network to have a team is greater than the value to the owner of the team to have the below market deal from the gravy train that used to exist. The reason why Jerry Reinsdorf is trying to have a network in Chicago, trying to find carriage, trying to do it as owner of the White Sox and Bulls. There is an effort by owners right now to figure out how to move money around in order to maximize all of it, not just the revenue, but to maximize how money is accounted for. Ted Leonsis has remained interested in buying the Nationals the whole time. He's been the natural person, the only person who would overpay to own that team. And what do I mean by overpay? I mean, you talk about $1.5 billion, $1.6 billion, $1.7 billion. The Nationals and Forbes are likely worth 2+, maybe 2.1, 2.3. The reality of that market, the reality of that stadium, the reality of that development around the stadium, the reason why the learners have had problems selling that team is they've had a hard time getting someone to recognize or to pay in advance for the upside that could exist when the team is underperforming from a revenue standpoint. The reality is the Washington Nationals got screwed the most by COVID. They won the World Series in 2019 and never had a chance to sell into it. 2020, the world changed. They didn't get a chance to sell season tickets, to have the opportunity to build on their season, to build on their championship. And now they're stuck in a position where they're back having rebuilt and starting to look better. Good young players, good young pitching, good young position players. But the reality is when your team is on the market, that stuff is not valued by potential owners. They don't look, oh, we like your roster. Oh, we don't like your overpaid veterans. They're not looking at that. They're looking at where can I get the best return? Where is their upside in revenue? Where is their upside? And with the Nationals, there is revenue upside in broadcast because they've gotten so badly cut by Masson this year. The deal with Masson, which is done and disappeared, the reality is the cash flow has changed. But Ted, as owner of the network, can actually make it so it's better for him as owner. He looks at this opportunity and he calls up Mark Lerner and says, I'll buy it, but it's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.